Elan and I both knew that we had to have a social presence. We didn't know who it was going to be. We didn't know what it was going to look like. But we are working with a product that has an expiration date, which means this also, we are not doing direct to consumer. So we won't do a channel, an e-commerce channel, right? Because we are a refrigerated good. It just does not make unit economic sense to ship that across the country. And then, so the third is that we are going to be in grocery stores. And the second it hits the grocery store shelf, you have a ticking time bomb until the product is wasted, right? And so we need to make sure that product is moving off the shelves at a high velocity, which means people know us and they're coming and they're choosing the product and they're buying it. And so all these sort of constraints and factors meant that we need to create an audience who's ready and willing to buy at any second. Whenever we're ready to do something, we have people who've signed up. And so that led us basically to social media of let's build in public.
Hi, everyone. I'm here with Kiki Couchman. Kiki, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your company?
Yes. Thank you for inviting me onto this podcast. As you said, I'm Kiki Couchman. Actually, my given name is Kirsten. Another little fact about myself. I grew up in Northern California and now I live in New York, and I'm building a yogurt company with my best friend. Sourmilk is a delicious grass-fed organic dairy yogurt with all the probiotic benefits that you would find in a supplement. No pill or powder required. And so we want to make sure that you can eat the thing that you love every single day and get all the probiotic benefits that you would find in a supplement each morning.
And you love yogurt.
I do.
So excited to talk more about yogurt.
Yes.
But first, it might be fun to talk a little bit about how we met. I don't think we have anyone in common.
Maybe that your brother went to Stanford. That's it.
And so I found you on Instagram and I messaged you kind of out of the blue, wondering if you were down to meet up. I think I found your content because you were using a song that I really love. And it just like that was, so I think that's actually a cute way to meet you, is like a shared good music taste. I
love that. Self-proclaimed good music taste is really what it is.
But yeah, so thank you so much for being willing and open to meet me. I am so struck by your story. I think you're really interesting. I love people who pivot. And so you being so young, pivoting in your career so early to create this brand with your best friend, kind of breaking maybe some rules there, some might say. I think you're just so interesting. So I want to talk about your story. Maybe you want to start with where you were born and a little bit about your family life.
Yeah, totally. So I was born, if we want to get technical, I was born in San Francisco. And I was raised in Sonoma, which is a small town about 1 hour north of San Francisco. It has 10,000 people in the town, so tiny little town, super different than New York City, where I live right now. My mom is Chinese. She was born in Hong Kong, and she grew up in San Francisco. And my dad is a white guy, and he grew up on a dairy farm in the Central Valley of California. So we always joke, he never in a million years thought that he would have a daughter who ended up back in the dairy industry. But what a fun and awesome moment to be able to get to share that in a way now that I'm entering the dairy industry, actually. And so grew up in Sonoma, grew up around agriculture. That was a huge part of my upbringing.
Sonoma's such a foodie. I used to live in San Francisco and would take like weekend trips to Sonoma. It's like wine country there. Just really beautiful produce because it's grown there.
Yeah, completely. I was so lucky. We grew up with a big garden, and I joke that we did the old fashioned business. We bartered all of our tomatoes for fresh eggs from the neighbors and all those types of things. We barely bought fruit or vegetables from the grocery store. And so being able to cook exactly what was coming from our garden was a huge part of just my life. And we were either in the kitchen or in the garden most days. So I grew up there, and I have one younger sister who actually now lives in New York City as well, which has been so fun.
Yeah.
And
how old is she?
She is 4 years younger than me, so 22. Yeah, she's the best. And so having a little slice of family over here on the East Coast, when my entire family, my mom is one of 6, my dad's one of 5, and they all live in Northern California. So to have a little bit of
I can totally relate. My little brother being in Chicago makes a huge difference. Like the rest of my family is way further away. So yeah.
It's really nice. And I'm always a California girl.
Same.
Always. But this is a really fun adventure for right now.
It is funny that there is something common about people from California. I can't put my finger on it, but I really think that there's some sort of shared experience and maybe having shared experience of Sonoma, for example. I'm like, oh yeah, Sonoma.
You know.
We know exactly what that means. But so you grew up around food, great quality food. I want to know about maybe you're going to college, what you wanted to do when you were younger? I guess maybe start there.
Totally. Well, I always joke that when I was in third grade, we still have it to this day. There's a little ornament on my Christmas tree, my family's Christmas tree, with my third grade image, like little headshot. And what I want to be when I grow up, teacher. And I always wanted to be a teacher. And it's a really interesting thing to think about how that exists. I mean, we'll get into it later, of brand building and founding a company and what that looks like. But there's so many elements of service and teaching people that really have played into every decision that I've made, and particularly the decision to build in public and do that as part of building Sourmilk.
Totally.
So I always,
so interesting.
It's crazy.
There was a connection.
And obviously hindsight's 2020. So like, this is not part of the blueprint at the beginning. But yeah, I always wanted to be a teacher. I went to high school and I was always very like academically inclined, went to Stanford, and really that was it. Like, there was no plan beyond that.
What was your major?
I was human biology. So yeah, that was something that was just, I was really attracted to Stanford because of the innovation and the interdisciplinary nature of the majors. And so it wasn't as, definitely nowhere near as traditional or conservative as many of East Coast schools, where it's like English, math, computer science, that's like kind of out there back then, or just very history, like very strict majors. And I found that Stanford, many of their majors incorporated many different disciplines.
Interdisciplinary
exactly
vibe too on campus. I thought.
Totally. Everyone was like really holistic and engaged in a lot of different things. So I was super open. I mean, and here's the thing, in another way, it was a very safe choice. It's obviously a very prestigious university.
Close to Sonoma.
I mean, close to Sonoma. It's 2 hours away, and the culture itself is like very Californian. A lot of 30% of the student body, I think, is from California. And so it felt culturally super comfortable. And I was just like, wanted to stay in that for a bit longer. So I studied human biology, not because I was like, I'm going to be a doctor or whatever it is, but I was really interested, again, in like the whole human experience. And part of what we learned was we learned anatomy, physiology, cellular biology, but we also learned developmental psychology, and we also learned healthcare economics, and we also learned human nutrition, and just like all these aspects of what it means to be human in the broader systems in our world, both on a physiological level, but then also
it's all connected
in the social system.
To me.
Totally. Thank you.
So human biology was the major. Oh, talk about meeting your best friend.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I think it's so cute. You guys are so cute on social media.
I actually just came from her apartment in Greenpoint. I like took the L over. We were working there together all morning, and yeah, it's really fun. We met at Stanford. Stanford is small. It's not that big. It's 1,500 kids per class. So we had known each other for a while, but actually became really close friends. We took this one food systems class with a professor named Christopher Gardner, who is now actually kind of famous. He was my advisor, and he has a twin study documentary on Netflix all about feeding these identical twins sort of different diets and their health outcomes associated.
Immediately I'm watching this when I'm
You should. It's hard. Any of those studies are really hard because there's so many other variables to control. So difficult. But anyway, he led that. And he taught this class prior to his Netflix fame. And so we met in this class, and she was a computer science major. Like, she had nothing to do with this food world or human biology. Even this class was quite tied to mine. And I remember we started sitting next to each other, and she is total biohacker. Like, I have no way to describe her other than that. She's always running experiments on herself. And I remember she was in a huge bulletproof coffee phase, if anyone remembers when that was really happening at its peak. And she was, yes, see? And she was fasting, and she was drinking bulletproof coffee with her like MCT oil.
Yeah.
She was a lightweight rower at Stanford.
Okay, yeah.
Now she's like
I remember you saying.
Yes. Now give her a follow. She posts insane CrossFit workouts every single morning.
CrossFit's hardcore.
It is.
Yeah.
It totally is. She's hardcore. And so she was really into bulletproof coffee. And I just remember we were sitting next to each other, and every morning she would bring me some. And it was just, we just really started our friendship there, and then continued on becoming best friends. And we lived together in San Francisco after graduating for 2 years. We both moved to New York. We decided it was like time to grow up and live on our own. So we both got single apartments here in New York, but we actually worked in the same office building in New York, even when we were at our other jobs.
Perfect. I bet you were so excited.
It was so fun. We got to commute to the same, meet for lunch on the roof, or once we started working on Sourmilk, we would have little secret meetings up on the roof. So that was fun. Yeah.
So, but she's a biohacker. She's also really into food from a nutritional standpoint.
She is. And I would say that we come at it, we both both are super interested in food in slightly different ways, I would say.
It seems that way.
Totally. I am really interested in the system of it, of the agriculture. I know and understand that and see that. And the balance part of it, right? She is super into the biohacking. How do I make sure I am feeding my body the most optimal things, but also major indulgence. This girl loves, and we both love delicious food, but I would say she really, really leans into that too. So she's more of an extreme person as it comes to food, and I would say I'm much more balanced in the middle.
Okay, cool. And it's so great that you come at it differently or have your own perspectives, because that also happens to help you serve different consumer audiences.
Totally.
So
100%. I mean, we can go into social media down the line, but we talk about that where I'm like, in one way, I'm top of funnel for all different reasons if we are going to use social media in that type of language. In another way, like Elan is this really interesting, she gets to reach a totally different audience. Like her CrossFit workouts, that is not me, by the way. I could never do that, but she can nail that. And she actually has started getting attention for that. And so like Sourmilk or a brand only really benefits from having this sort of girl band like thing where each person gets to attract a different audience. Even though we're all under this Benny umbrella, we each have our own niche and we each can speak to a different consumer.
So cool. So you guys are in New York at the same time. Talk about what jobs brought you to New York. Because you guys do different things in New York before starting Sourmilk.
Yeah, we actually both had been at the same job since graduating. So we both graduated in 2020. It was
crazy time.
Yes, so crazy time. We didn't get the real graduation. That's okay. But yeah, it was March 2020. We were told to go home. We all went home and we finished out classes online for those final 3 months. And then we both started working in San Francisco. She started, I don't know exactly what her titles were, but she ended her job at the company she was at as a product manager. And it was a crypto Web3 infrastructure API sort of company. And she really rode that wave. Like
she's a CS major at Stanford, right?
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and saw that company grow a ton. And she grew a lot with that company too. And so she actually just started in San Francisco and then they were opening a New York office and she wanted to move to New York. And so this was sort of the perfect opportunity to do that. Very similar to my experience, which is I started as an analyst at Alpine Investors, which is a private equity firm that I worked for. And then I stayed in San Francisco for 2 years, I think. And then, yeah, it was 2 years. And then they opened a New York office about a year into me joining Alpine and it felt like the right time.
Feels very fatey.
Feels extremely fatey. I mean, for me, it was so much more about I'm from the Bay Area. I grew up here. I went to Stanford. I'm in San Francisco. I could live and die in this place if I don't leave now. Yeah, I totally, and it felt like really a great opportunity. And honestly, I completely credit my previous job. Like I was growing so much professionally and it was a stark contrast to my personal life. And I felt like my personal life was stagnating in comparison. And I was
like working too much or like?
No, because it felt so culturally similar. Like I was so comfortable. Yeah. And there were no new friends. And amazing. I love everybody who was in the Bay Area, but it was just time to branch out and be a little bit more uncomfortable personally and force myself to grow. And so when
it's so important. Yeah.
It was. Yeah. And like change, I think, is a really good forcing function to really push yourself in a different way. And New York represented everything that I had no idea how to make myself happy in a city like this. In the Bay Area, it's like, oh yeah, I go back home to my garden and I go for a swim or I go on a hike or we drive on Mount Tam and watch the sunset and the fog roll over the hills.
It really tests your tools of
fully.
Yeah.
Like who is Kiki in the city without any of her friends? And when I have a really shitty day, what do I do when I don't have my best friends around? Like what about this city and this place can I cultivate for myself? So yeah, so that was definitely a transition, but one that I wanted to bring on. Almost.
Cool. So, okay. How long into working at those jobs did the idea come about for Sourmilk?
So Elan started making yogurt for herself about 2.5 years ago. So she really, again, per this biohacking type interest, she really wanted to do it for herself. She wanted to eat the probiotics instead of take the pill every morning. And there's a few reasons for that. One is if it's in food, it's both cheaper, so you don't need to pay to have a monthly subscription of another supplement. Like there's 500 different types, but also it's more bioavailable. So if you are able to eat the food with the nutrients in it, your body's able to absorb a higher quantity of whatever that nutrient is, in this case, the probiotic. And so she'd been making it actually back in San Francisco and like not at all an idea for a business, much more just for her own health and for her own healing, and saw tremendous benefits: skin, hair, sleep, energy in the morning, all of those things, bloating. She had a really, really horrible experience with continuous and chronic inflammation and bloating. And so after she started making her own yogurt, saw great benefits. Fast forward, we both moved to New York earlier this year, actually earlier last year, a year ago. We were both starting to feel, what's next for us? We've learned so much in these current jobs. We've been here for 4 years, and we're starting to think about, just as you talk with any best friend, the constant life crises, right? Of like, where am I spending my energy? How am I using all the hours in the day? Is this sort of the highest and best use of my time in a way? And I just felt like our learning had plateaued a bit. And so continued talking with each other just nightly about what was it going to be. And we knew we wanted to create something and have sort of, I use creative freedom loosely, not necessarily in an artistic sense, but in like a building sense. So be able to think strategically and just come up with an idea and go build it and run at it until it breaks and then do something else and do something else. And so going somewhere really early stage was sort of the obvious answer to both of us. And then it became even more obvious. It was actually Elan who woke up one morning and was like, let's just do yogurt, Kiki. Should we just scale yogurt? We've never worked in a food company. This is a perishable good. We're in the animal space. This is refrigerated. I know. Go on. I was like, there's so many reasons why not to do yogurt. But when we really, really peeled back, we were like, there's so many reasons not to do it. And that's why so many people are not going to do this. And we feel both uniquely suited to do this in the sense of my background, her interests, our relationship and partnership together, and curiosity. And so we're both uniquely suited, but also have a unique passion and drive and excitement for this type of challenge right now. And so it felt pretty obvious and natural once I got over the initial, like, oh my God, shock.
So I always like to, a lot of people who are creating their own brands or they're really early on in their entrepreneurship journey. So I always like to ask founders when they're on the show, what were your very first steps? This morning, I interviewed a woman who left a job at Amazon to start her own apparel brand. And she had the most incredible advice. She was like, you need to start with your mission, your ethos. What is going to differentiate you in the market? And that has to be the anchor to everything that happens next from like, well, product comes next. And then, yeah.
I actually was just going to say that was the first thing that we did was we actually created a deck just for the sake of creating an exercise for both of us. And that was, what's our mission? What's our vision? So what differentiates us? What's the white space we're trying to fill? What are our values? What are our 4 core values? And then who do we think our target audience is? And who our customers are and those personas. And we fleshed all those things out super clearly together. And then it was, okay, let's go test this. Let's actually go see if those are the right values, if there actually is a white space that we believe there to be in the yogurt aisle, and if these 3 customer personas actually buy and eat yogurt and would buy something like this. And so first step was creating that deck and getting really clear, just that exercise of getting clear together.
Were your personas based on friends?
We named them.
Are they actual people?
Yes.
Do they know about themselves being personas?
One of them is my friend's boyfriend and now fiance.
Because also accurate, they're real people. So
they're real people.
Your personas need to be realistic.
And they need to be specific.
Yes,
it can't
they
just
do need to be specific.
By the way, to be a really successful brand, we actually have to be a broad market, right? But to start, we need those loyal customers who are going to be of a specific niche. And it can't just be women aged 22 to 32. There's a lot of different types of people. Okay, what about those women aged? And continue down those categories. So yeah, one of them was me. One of the persona's name was Kiki. Another was my friend's fiance. And then another was a woman that I know from work from my previous job. Yeah.
Okay. So.
And then we interviewed.
Yes.
A ton of people. So I always go back to that is before we even really said we're going to do this, we put together a list of 100 people, not our closest friends, but again, friends, boyfriends, or friends, siblings, or whoever that was. And we reached out. We each had a goal of doing, it was like 5 interviews a day. This was when we still had our jobs, but we just tried to fit it in. And we had a ton of questions. We created a line of questioning and we ran the same questions to every single person to get really clear on what are people's yogurt habits, what are people's buying habits, particularly in premium and CPG, what's their loyalty look like, what are they attracted to, how do they think about probiotics, what do they know about the space, like so many different types of questions. So we could just feel extremely equipped, in like how we pitch this, because I think knowing how people consume and what they think about when they consume is really important. And then B, who who we're pitching it to, right? Like, are these the right people? And is this the right thing? I think the last thing, which people have to be very honest with themselves, is there even space for this? And in some ways, I think, do we need another product on the shelf? I don't know. There's so many different products on the shelf. I truly believe in Sourmilk, and I think that we are filling a white space, but I think it is important for founders and people to think about that too.
So I was reading an article, CEO of Shopify, but he had this quote about how you build a successful business. All you need are 1,000 diehard fans, and you just get $100 of revenue from all of those diehard fans. All of a sudden, I mean, there is a business right there. And so it's just kind of interesting. It made me think of that as you were developing your personas and you were doing your own user testing with people in your network.
Yeah. And by the way, I like what that is. I like what you're saying there, because we think about that all the time, is who are our first 30 repeat customers, then 300. Let's not even start with 1,000, right? How do we continue to look like right in front of us at the most urgent to continue building and building and building? But separate from that, actually doing those initial user customer interviews was really helpful, because we're new to the space of consumer and food in general. And so every single person we asked, who do you know who's a yogurt lover, or who do you know who's in this space in any way? And that was so helpful to begin this whole mind map of what does this industry look like? Who are the key players? And now we have this whole network of initial feelers in this space that we've never worked in before. And just explicitly asking people to intro us and having that avenue was really, really helpful and like a really good starting point for the rest of our journey to this point.
Yeah. And I want you to talk a little bit about that too, because you guys looking at, you have a bit of a background, I guess, in your family with dairy, but you guys haven't worked in food or F&B, food and beverage. So talk a little bit about how you're going about learning.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into social media, because that's a really interesting part of your story. Yeah. Talk about how you are meeting your sources of information, where you're getting it.
Yeah. Everywhere. We are yes man right now. And you have to be, or at least what I've learned is like, just ask. Like if you want to know
like
something,
other brands and looking at their teams, or
honestly, every single person that I talk to, every single friend, any single networking event, when I was back at my old company, every single person who asked,
do you know people in food?
I'm like, hey, I'm actually starting a yogurt company on the side and I'm new to this space. Do you know anyone who's ever worked tangentially? Every single person I asked that question to. And
you didn't even ask me that. And I answered one of your Instagram posts and I was like, here's a chick I know that I can introduce you.
Yeah. Totally. Exactly. See? And
because you want to help. You're like, oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know this person.
Yeah. And I think that I think my whole ethos on social media is learning. Like, I think that's my hope, is that that's the impression. I never give, obviously we haven't achieved any success yet as a company, but what we have achieved is like, we've been able to get some brand recognition in a space where we've never worked before. And because of that,
you have a pretty engaged social following.
I do. Too. We have a very engaged social following. So I think that's about hopping on the phone with so many people and being very intentional. And I think this is something that being in the working world has taught me, and just being a curious person is like, use that time wisely. What are the questions you really want to ask? Who is this person and how can you get the most out of their time? And people want to help you. Everybody wants to feel like they're important and that they're useful.
And it feels good to help.
Of course. And so, and I don't just like milk that, like use that to your advantage, and it will help them and it will help you. And there's always something I've really learned is I talk to all these founders who are maybe 3 years ahead of me, 2 to 3 years ahead of me, and they want to know about social strategy. And so I also can like volunteer
it's an
some
exchange
value.
Of energy.
Yeah, totally.
So how have you, for example, your designer that you're working with, you have Elan as your co-founder, the people that you are slowly building a team, I guess, or working with people, how are you finding, are they referrals from, hey, do you know this, maybe other founders, or are they telling you, giving you?
Totally. Yeah. So one, I think social media has completely expanded my network in a crazy way. So there are a few startup CPG networks in New York City. Startup CPG is one, Naturally New York is another. And we have met people through those channels. So networking events, whatever it might look like. But the biggest way is people who have you would not believe the number of people who message me every single day on Instagram. And it gets completely lost. So I'm so sorry if I haven't responded to any of your DMs. But that's been the biggest way, is other founders being connected. And then, hey, who do you guys use for your insurance? Hey, who do you guys use for your designer? Hey, blah, 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 blah. Our designer specifically, that's not how we found her. I actually grew up with her in Sonoma, and she's a friend's older sister. And so it's great. And she's fantastic. I highly recommend. And I've now given her name to so many other founders in the space too. Yeah.
Cool. So, okay, talk about social. When did you make the decision to start documenting your journey in the public on social media? Your face is pretty out there. How does Elan feel about it? Yeah.
My face is pretty out there. I was at a Shopify event last night and someone came up to me and was like, oh my God, you're an influencer. I was like, oh my God, I'm not an influencer. Let's say very real. So yeah, it's weird. It feels very weird. In some ways, I'm very proud of it because it's something that I had no experience in. And so I do want to pat myself on the back and be like, you did this. In other ways, I'm like, Kiki, you got to grow so much faster. And like, why is this not happening? So it's obviously always a double-edged sword. Elan and I both knew that we had to have a social presence. We didn't know who it was going to be. We didn't know what it was going to look like, but we are working with a product that has an expiration date, which means we are not doing direct to consumer. So we won't do an e-commerce channel, right? Because we are a refrigerated good. It just does not make unit economic sense to ship that across the country. And then, so the third is that we are going to be in grocery stores. And the second it hits the grocery store shelf, you have a ticking time bomb until the product is wasted, right? And so we need to make sure that product is moving off the shelves at a high velocity, which means people know us and they're coming and they're choosing the product and they're buying it. And so all these sort of constraints and factors meant that we need to create an audience who's ready and willing to buy at any second. Whenever we're ready to do something, we have people who've signed up. And so that led us basically to social media of let's build in public. There's a few brands I think that do it really well and people that do it really well. And even like I live down the street from Little Sweet Treats in the West Village, which is a candy store. And I remember when it opened, before this, I was not like an online person. Like I was not on TikTok, barely, right? Like I had an Instagram, but it was one of those things where I used to post and then in recent years, it's like I post once every 6 months or something like that. And I saw this candy store and it opened on a random, like, I don't know, maybe it was like September or October. And there was a line out the door the day it opened. How does anybody even know about this place? It hasn't even, how, right? It's like the size of an ATM. It's tiny. And then I saw, oh my gosh, this woman who opened the candy store has like hundreds of thousands of followers on TikTok. And she's been bringing them on the journey of building this candy store for a year. And such like the smallest minutia. Should I use this color or this color paint? Or how should I do referral cards or punch cards? Should be tied to your phone number. Should be just like,
and then everyone feels this sense of ownership.
Totally.
And you're celebrating with everybody who's part of the journey.
Totally. Yeah. So that was, shout out Ellie Belly Eats. That was like a crazy inspiration and unlock for me to realize, oh my gosh, even if you don't take their feedback at every decision point, allowing them under the hood and letting people see what those decision points are, that just gets them super bought in, but then it also gets them really excited and they feel like they created and had a piece of the decision, even if you sort of disregard their feedback potentially or didn't take it. So it became really obvious that we had to do it. Elan and I then practiced making videos, which
you gotta film stuff that never sees the light of day.
Never sees the light of day.
God forbid it ever gets seen by anyone.
Oh my God, we filmed so many random things because we didn't even know like what's the style, what's it gonna look like. Yeah. We were still in our job, so it's not like we have yogurt content, right? Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? It's like the other thing is we knew that we had to sell ourselves and our story and not necessarily the yogurt. People will care about the yogurt once they care about me. So we started practicing. It became very clear it was not Elan. It was just very difficult for her to make content and very unnatural. And so the more I did it, the more that it actually felt natural. And I actually love it. I almost feel embarrassed to say that I love making content because it feels like for some reason there's such like a stigma of like lowbrow around it.
I relate to this sentiment deeply. However, and I think about this a lot because I feel the exact same anxieties. I'm like, if you really are passionate about your product, isn't it fun to talk about it?
Fun.
Right? So then why wouldn't it be fun to capture that? It's already something that matters so much to you. Yeah. And it's fun to watch that. Isn't it cool to listen to someone who's like so passionate, knows so much about, and obviously they're creating something that I was actually just talking to before you got here. Yeah. Like it just makes sense. And of course it's fun for you because it goes back to when you were younger and you wanted to be a teacher.
Yes.
Because it's
so fun.
You are expressing that.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like, I think that's the biggest reframe is both that everything is content, but also this is a creative expression. Part of it is teaching. It's a reflection exercise every day for me to think about what are the decisions that I'm making today? What are the key decision points throughout my day? How do I explain those in a very succinct and interesting and engaging way? And then how am I feeling about those things? Like truly, authentically. And being able to tell a story.
Storytelling.
Yeah, and weave that in is really fun and gratifying to actually be able to put pen to paper, words to a video in a way, and then also see how that lands with people too. It has been really fun too.
So you came into the studio today with a backpack on.
I did.
You got some yogurt on you.
I did.
Going into like where you're at right now, you're doing some pop-ups I saw on social media. So where are you at with
Sourmilk?
Where are the products being made? Yeah. Talk about that.
So we are in super small production mode right now. We are working out of a small commercial kitchen over in Williamsburg, Greenpoint area. And that is Elan's area of expertise. She is sort of the yogurt guru. We both have our food handler's license now, so that way we can like legally work and create food. But yes, she's totally manning that whole process. We're making about 20 to 50 units of yogurt. When I say units, they're the 16-ounce straw, the like squat fat foyer size. And we're selling those via drop sale. So we have a whole sign-up list. We have about 350 plus people on our sign-up list, and we it is cool.
That's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people. We have 800 people on our mailing list.
Crazy.
It's great. It's amazing.
And you're not even at stores. Do you know, that's like a huge deal.
Yeah.
I work with brands that are not even there. That's great. Okay.
Thank you.
Just like
social media.
Yes,
like that's literally my plug.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I'm going to sound like so annoying, but I wish it was more because I'm like, I have 10,000 followers. Okay. Only 800.
Also, you're amazing. Take a second and just be like, your numbers are crazy. And it's cool for where you're at too. It's going to keep growing over time.
Yeah.
And you want it to grow authentically too.
Yes.
And it's not.
And we're bootstrapping this, so I'm not trying to like pay for advertising.
Yeah.
I wish, right? But this is all organic content that I make. And I have a calendar hold.
We're going to have so many venture capital firms. Anyway, that's a whole other space. Don't even think about it.
Yeah. Though investors do, they've been interesting. So we've been making it and we've been selling it small scale, very much hand-to-hand contact, right? Like we are delivering it to our customers. And again, this is like not for top line revenue growth. In no way is 50 units of yogurt going to move the needle.
Because you're also getting feedback.
But we're getting feedback and we're creating that 300 people loyal customer base. And that's the thing that we really want to do. So that's where we are right now. We're trying to plug in. We have our 3 customer personas. Where do they exist in this world? Where do they exist in New York City? And how can we plug into existing communities? That's a really light lift on our part. We don't need to create an event. We don't need to do a whole thing, rent out a space. We can just plug into these existing events. I have all these followers, so I can tell them we will double your numbers, right, in whatever event you're throwing. And we're going to provide the yogurt. So we'll do samples and we'll do demos. And so that way our target audience gets to try this yogurt. They could potentially buy it afterwards. And my goal is for every single person in our target audience in New York City to have seen me and seen what Sourmilk is 10 times over and maybe have tried us at different demos and different events 5 times by the time we hit grocery store shelves in a few months. And so that way they're so ready and they so know our brand that they're ready to be activated and buy Sourmilk.
Cool. And I saw you're doing a pop-up this Thursday. So
tomorrow. Yes.
It's tomorrow.
Oh, yogurt day.
It's on my calendar. I registered for it.
I'm so glad. Yay. That's just like fun, right? So we just, again, we're at a coffee shop. Friend of a friend of a friend has a coffee shop that was like promo for promo. It's an afternoon on a Thursday. It's probably a slow time. And so we decided it's National Yogurt Day. I don't even know if that's right, but somehow that ended up on our calendar. So hopefully that's true. And instead of doing all of our drop sales hand delivery, we just posted on our Instagram and I messaged individually each person on our drop sale list, which took so much of my morning this morning, saying, hey, we have yogurt for you. Come meet us here and just RSVP to make sure that we have the right numbers. And so we'll be posted up for 3 hours at MJ Cafe in the Lower East Side, and we'll be just doing yogurt transactions, hanging out with people who love yogurt. Excited.
How fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So can you tell the audience about where to find you, all your socials?
Yes.
Yeah.
Plug myself. You can find me on, I guess, like everything, but I'm most active on Instagram at Couchwoman. My last name is Couchman.
Also, I ask this of every guest because there's a lot of younger girls who watch the show who are in high school and college, and your golden piece of advice that you wish a younger version of yourself would have received.
Can I choose 2?
Yes.
Okay.
You can have as many as you want.
Oh my gosh, no, I only have 2. And think number one is like find advocates in every space. That I have the best manager ever. She was the person who hired me out of Stanford and took a chance on me. And she has been so instrumental in my development, in my career, and supporting me at every place. And it didn't even matter what firm I was at or what company I went to. I think it matters who your manager is and who your advocates are. And so even if it's not a direct manager, find those mentors and those people who want to invest in you, because that just can do you such a service to have somebody who has already trekked the path and is there to sort of open doors for you, particularly as young women. And then the second, also as a woman, done is better than perfect. That is my mantra.
That is so funny.
Every day.
The woman, Leanne, that I interviewed earlier this morning, that was one of
No
hers.
way.
She had two also, by the way.
my God.
So you guys are on the same wavelength. That's amazing founder chicks.
Oh my gosh. Done is better than perfect. Like, it is, particularly starting something. You are never going to have enough time. It's never going to be perfect. You're never going to have enough information. You have to trust yourself with the tools you have, with the information you have, and just make a decision and go. And like the most obvious way that shows up is social media every single day. I continue to tell myself, you have to make 5 reels a week. 5 reels a week is a lot if you've ever made a video. And to have never been a content creator and to have no one on my staff, it's literally me and Elan, no one helping me do this, done has to be better than perfect, right? Yeah. There's just no way.
And with social, you have to be producing.
Yes.
Like you can't.
It is quantity a little bit.
You can't procrastinate and be like, okay, I'll do it next week. Like you got.
Yes. And like everyone's like, it is a quality game. It is a quality game. But I'm never going to keep it up if you have to tell me it has to be perfect quality every time. So like in some ways, you're going to have a really high bar for yourself. And so you want to maintain that. But at the same time, just getting things out there is so important. And it's like, anyway.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on. It was so great to talk to you. Thanks everyone for listening and have a great day.